Welcome to the City Governance meeting on 20th of January, Tuesday at 9:37. I would like to advise attendees in the room that this meeting is being webcast and audio recorded. We have some leaves of absence. First one on the screen is for Councillor Russell. Have someone to, thank you, Councillor Murphy, and seconded by Councillor Stemp. All those in favour? Thank you, that's carried. And the second one being for Councillor Fraser. Someone to move that. Councillor Murphy, seconded by Councillor Hall. All those in favour? That's been carried. Thank you, councillors. Confirmation of previous committee meeting minutes. There's now a motion displayed on the screen to confirm the previous minutes. If we have someone to move that. Councillor Stemp, and seconded by Councillor Murphy. All those, anyone want to speak to the motion? All those in favour? Councillor Harriman, how do you vote?
Abstain.
That's been carried, thank you. And declarations of conflict of interest. I now refer to the declarations of conflict of interest. Do any councillors wish to declare a conflict of interest today? There being none, I'll now refer to the reports on today's agenda. First up, 6.1, Local Government and Committee Meeting Code Amendment. And Chris Furlong will speak to that. Thanks, Chris.
Good morning, councillors. I'm the Acting Manager of Integrity and Information, and I present this report on behalf of Mark Pearce, who is the General Manager of Corporate Governance, as I'm sure you are aware. The report I'm presenting to you this morning relates to a small change in the meeting code, but one which will give you councillors greater flexibility to attend meetings by audio link or audio visual link. I will take the report as read, but I draw your attention to an amendment in the meeting code at 5.3b and on page 44 of the agenda. You will note that the definition of exceptional circumstances has been broadened to include where a councillor has a reasonable basis to not attend in person. The inclusion of the proposed amendment will allow a councillor who has a reasonable basis for not attending a meeting in person to seek approval to participate by audio link or audio visual link. As to what constitutes a reasonable basis, this has intentionally not been defined, but this could include things such as councillor being unwell, having caring duties, or being away from the city. Finally, I understand a comprehensive review of the meter code will be completed and presented to council later this year for consideration. And councillors, that concludes the report. It's recommended the meter code is adopted as drafted attachment 1, and I'm happy to take any questions and I'll answer what I can.
Thanks, Chris. Mayor Raven.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, Chris, I appreciate what you're trying to achieve here and the intention. My problem is it's very broad, right? So a reasonable basis, A, is an exceptional circumstance. So it shouldn't be under the, you either need to change the words exceptional, because reasonable isn't exceptional, it's just reasonable. But also, there's no limit to this, right? So we've had really good examples recently, and not to pick on Councillor Bradley, but there was an instance where she was concerned she might have been contagious. She really wanted to vote. She wore a mask. She protected us all to the best of her ability. It probably would have been more appropriate for her to Teams in from her office, and I would have been completely comfortable with that, but she couldn't. Great example of where the current rules are very limiting. Other examples too, where I think Councillor Wilcox was on leave, totally wanted to Teams in because there was an important meeting for her community, was going to make sure she was in a confidential environment, also completely appropriate because she was on the other side of the world, no capacity to get here whatsoever. The problem with this is that to refuse a reasonable basis, the person who's making the refusal, which I assume is the chair, would have to be unreasonable by definition of the fact that any reason is reasonable, right? So it's like, I don't feel like coming in today, or I'm a little bit tired, are reasons, and the chair couldn't possibly say no to that because you'd be unreasonable in denying it. So like, I would prefer a list of reasons to be in there, and they can be a broad list, but I think illness that doesn't impair your ability to make decisions, because that's the critical thing. If you're so ill that you can't come in because your decision-making capacity is impaired, whether because you're on painkillers or something else, that's an issue. But the Councillor Bradley example where she was feeling well, but she was concerned that she might be contagious, I think that's a perfectly good reason to be able to do it from your office. So my concern is that it's too broad. Councillors may disagree with me because you could get very trivial or vague reasons for not attending meetings, and there's no way to say no, because you'd have to be unreasonable to do it. So that's my grief with this. I don't have a good solution to an alternative, unfortunately. But I think maybe just a little bit of some kind of rails that sets an expectation of what is an acceptable reason would be helpful to have in the meeting code.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Mr Strachan or the City Solicitor perhaps might be able to assist.
I'm happy to kick off. I anticipated some discussion around the term reasonable, I guess, Mayor Raven. So it is always difficult to wrap words around what is reasonable and to provide a definitive list of reasons as to why a councillor may want to attend remotely to a local government meeting. My suggestion potentially is we've come up with this solution to update the current meeting code. What we could do, there's a couple of requirements in the existing meeting code that if a councillor is aware sometime in advance that they're not going to be in attendance, then it does go to a council vote in relation to them attending remotely. However, sometimes, and it's often the case, a councillor becomes aware at short notice that they're unable to attend a local government meeting, and then it does become the role of the Mayor as the chair of the ordinary council meeting or as the chair of a standing committee as to determine whether the reason is reasonable. My suggestion potentially today is what we could do, there is a more fulsome review of the meeting code on the way, and I know that's been on the way for some time. We have drafted the updated meeting code, and then the government came out with the Local Government Empowering Councils Other Legislation Amendment Bill, which is sitting before the committee at the moment. I think they've had public submissions. They must be writing the report, and then it'll go back to Parliament for debate and adoption. And the reason we didn't bring forward the fulsome review of the meeting code is because that changed legislation impacts on the code, and we didn't want to bring an updated meeting code then to have to bring a further update in close proximity to that. So my suggestion today, completely up to councillors, we could run with the amendment as it is today, and then review that and change that as part of the adoption of a revised meeting code down the track. And that way we could test it, see how it works, and give us some learnings for updating the actual code when we come with incorporating the changed legislation that's sitting before Parliament at the moment.
I don't want to derail the amendment because it is like councillors are missing out on representing their community, and that's a bad thing. I just think there needs to be some kind of rails, even if it's as simple as the committee or the council votes to determine whether they have a reasonable, whether the reasonable basis is there, so that it's not one person deciding. Because I assume it doesn't say. Again, it's a very small amendment. Does the chair determine what reasonability is? So.
Through the chair, if a councillor, in terms of the current provisions of the meeting code, if a councillor is aware some time in advance that they're not able to attend, it is a requirement that it goes to council for a vote at a prior local government meeting to the meeting which they want to attend via team. So that's an existing requirement. However, if it's last minute, they're not aware, they wake up feeling ill, then it is the provisions at the moment, and these provisions haven't changed, however restricted to exceptional circumstances as they sit at the moment, does come down to the discretion of the chair. So yourself, in the case of an ordinary council meeting or a standing committee chair at the moment, would be to determine what's reasonable. If it was last minute notice.
Yeah. I'd probably prefer that it be a vote of the committee or the council meeting. That's the only change I'd suggest.
Councillor Herrimeyer.
Thank you. So on that basis, let's say instead of the chair of the committee deciding whether or not a last-minute request for an audio-visual link happens, instead of that, let's say we run with the other idea, which is the committee decides. So for the committee to decide, the assumption is that the committee meets and then decides. Can the committee decide on whether or not a councillor attends a meeting virtually while the meeting is already taking place?
Look, I would imagine that is a possibility. The issue with that, it's not giving the councillor any degree of certainty as to whether they will be actually able to participate in those meetings. The way it's framed at the moment is the councillor would raise the request in writing, they would be given an answer as to whether they're able to attend or not attend, rather than have to wait to the committee meeting for a discussion and a vote in relation to whether they're able to attend via Teams. So I think that would be probably a little bit clunky in terms of a process if we were to go down that particular avenue.
Is an alternative to have a flying minute before the committee starts, so then the councillor who has submitted that intent to attend virtually can have a clear yes or no answer as to whether or not their attendance is allowed virtually before the committee starts. So an email would be sent to all the councillors saying Councillor X wants to attend virtually. This is the reasonable basis or whatever the term is to describe why they want to attend virtually, and then the flying minute is organised. Then the result is clear and you can have a yes or no answer before the meeting starts. Does that work in terms of a governance perspective?
I can see, once again, administrative issues with that in terms of the proximity for when advice may come through in writing from a councillor wishing to attend via Teams, and the ability to put together an email out to all councillors and get a sufficient number of councillors to respond to that particular email. Once again, because it's outside a local government meeting, that wouldn't be a decision of the local government. We'd have to write that into the meeting code to craft a process around that. Once again, my advice would be all those suggestions that you've come up with, Councillor Jeremiah, should be considered when we actually update the meeting code with the raft of changes that we want to make.
And this reasonable basis clause that's proposed is really just a temporary interim measure until we get to that full review that is coming up at some point. Do we have a specific date?
It's a good question through the chair. The bill was introduced in November last year, so the bill, which is the Local Government Empowering Councils and Other Legislation Amendment Bill. I think submissions closed on the 16th of December from memory. It generally takes 6 to 12 weeks for committees to write reports. That report will be written and then introduced to the government. They will consider that, make changes, not make changes. It'll go to Parliament for debate. So I think we're a matter of probably a few months away from having that legislation. So that's an indicative time frame with regard to when we know what the legislation is and then have the ability to come back with a meeting code that stands the test of time. And I am aware there are other councillors that are very keen to see changes to other areas of the meeting code, particularly in relation to voting.
Okay, so the department is expecting, the governance department is expecting that this full review of the meeting code, best case scenario, will take place this financial year, but there's a huge dependency on the state government and the Parliament. Okay. My next point is about the term reasonable basis. So it's unclear as to who defines that reasonable basis. So it would be great to have either a prescriptive approach where it's clear that sickness, ill health, family reasons are clear black and white objective factual criteria that can be met, rather than a reasonable basis which is prone to interpretation. And when things are prone to interpretation, there's a risk of political use of that as well. Now, also, what happens in the case where a chair decides that a councillor has submitted such a request for virtual attendance? The chair has decided that, in their view, this is not a reasonable basis, access denied from the meeting. What escalation points does that councillor have to check whether or not that was the right judgment by the chair? Is there a risk that by having this broad, reasonable basis term that's prone to interpretation by different people, there can get into disputes and potentially escalate to tribunals regarding the judgment from the chair? What are the escalation points available to a councillor if they disagree with the chair's judgment regarding reasonability?
It's a good question, Councillor Hurmaier. Under the way the suggested wording of the meeting code is, the decision would be made by council if there was sufficient notice in terms of being able to get approval at a prior local government meeting to the meeting they wanted to attend via team. So that would be a council decision. So that's one scenario. The other scenario is where it's late notice, woke up feeling ill, but I feel like I can participate and make decisions in the public interest. They would reach out to the chair or chairs, because often it's the case we have more than one standing committee on a day. That decision then would be made by either the mayor in the case of ordinary council or the chair. So that decision, they're making that decision under policy. So that's not a decision they're making in the local government meeting. So the provisions of the local government, the meeting code in relation to chair's conduct in local government meetings doesn't apply in that particular case, because they're making that decision as a policy decision. I would imagine if a councillor was not happy with the decision made by the chair, they would have avenues to discuss it with the mayor and to raise it in a local government meeting as to the fact that they felt like their reason was reasonable to attend remotely. I think they would be probably the most practical avenues to move forward. It is often the case that I see the chairs of the various standing committees where there's a request and the request is going to impact on multiple standing committees, that they do discuss amongst themselves the merits of the request to attend remotely. So that may assist the individual chairs in coming to a decision in relation to what's reasonable and what's not reasonable.
Okay, thank you. I think what's clear to me is, yep, that sounds practical, but in terms of the actual facts of escalation, is that having a discussion with the decision maker is not the only point of escalation that could happen from this policy. It's clear that if someone who's bestowed an ability to make a decision regarding a councillor attending a meeting and they refuse it, and that councillor disagrees with that judgment, there's clear escalation points to administrative tribunals, as that person who's making the decision is exercising their public office power. Now, you can challenge that. Council is not a law to itself. There's things that council needs to answer to, and a clear one's the administrative tribunal. That's the last place we should be. And I think by having broad terms like reasonable basis, where two sides can clearly see and interpret it in different ways, we should encourage that and we shouldn't write it into the code. So my proposal is that we should just make it a bit more prescriptive. Instead of a councillor has a reasonable basis to not attend in person, it should be a councillor has a basis on sickness, grief, personal reasons. We can work out the language, but my proposal is to be prescriptive rather than broad. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Stamp.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Look, I'm with you. I don't like the term reasonable basis. First term, surely, like back then, someone would say they were joining via Teams at the start of the meeting and they just carried on. Like if it was within the meeting code, there was no vote, there was no discussion. I don't even think it had to be approved by the chair at that point. So why can't we just list the items we've already encountered, put them in there, and then just see what happens when we get to the meeting code later in the year? If they don't work or do work, surely we've got a bit of a list of the things that people have encountered, put them in there, reasonable basis, and I don't think we should have to vote on it. I don't think we should have to, the chair should have to approve it. I think if it's, if it's listed of the things we normally encounter, then that's the case. That's my decision on that part. The second one is, what happens with chairs? Now, I think, was it part of the legislation that a chair can't come in via Teams if they're unwell? Like if, for example, no, that's the thing. So if say I was unwell but I wanted to be part of the meeting, I can't be. Is that still the case per the legislation, or is that part of our meeting code?
Probably need to refer to the city solicitor. My understanding is the issue was if the chair is in the room, they need to chair the meeting, so they can't participate in the meeting and not be the chair. My recollection, it was potentially part of the legislation, but I might just need to, it was part of our meeting code.
Through you, Mr. Chair, just part of the meeting code in relation to that issue. Can I be bold enough to just interject and just provide some context to this provision, just to see if that will help. Is that okay, Mr. Chair? Yes. I think it's important to look back at the legislation that actually provides for what should happen in meetings. So the local government regulation is very clear about the rules that must apply. So in relation to when a councillor can participate via Teams or via audio visual link, the legislation is actually very general. It just says that a councillor may participate via audio or visual link if approved by the committee or the council meeting. So there's no extra rules. What has happened is that, as I've said before, sometimes we Loganise things, and in our meeting code, what was included was an additional requirement that should only happen in exceptional circumstances. So that's not a requirement of the legislation. That was something that Logan included in its meeting code. What we've found is that that definition that we included of exceptional circumstances has proved to be very limiting, and it's meant that there have been councillors who haven't been able to participate via Teams because of our meeting code. This proposed provision, it was just an attempt to really level that back to what the legislation provides. And as councillors, every decision you make, you're thinking about what's reasonable in the circumstances. So I think it's something that you all are actually used to doing, that you're comfortable with doing. We could include specific definitions of what reasonable is. We run the risk in doing that we'll fall back into that trap of there being a circumstance that falls outside of that. But certainly if that's something that would be helpful, we could do it, and we could do it in the interim just by, for instance, including examples of what's reasonable for that provision. So we could include a couple of examples in the provision, and that would at least provide some guidance.
Thank you.
Sorry,
Councillor Stump.
Cherie. So where does that leave chairs then? Can they still Teams in then under the code, under this code as it sits? If they're really unwell and there's a deputy that's going to chair, can we still Teams in?
Through you, Mr. Chair, under the meeting code, again, a provision that we have included,
Okay.
chairs need to be in the room to participate.
Okay, but that's not part of the legislation. That's part of the code.
No.
No, okay. So we could change that.
Through you, Mr. Chair, in the revision of the meeting code, we certainly could. Making that change to the current meeting code would be a bit of work, but it can be done if that's what you would like.
All right, thank you.
Councillor Wilcox.
Thank you. Sorry. Through the chair. Robert, can you just let me know, the bill that we're waiting on, is it the Local Government Empowering Councils and Other Legislation Amendment Bill 2025?
Correct.
It was 20th of November 2025. So my concern with that one is I see no mention of the meeting code in here, and I've read half the submissions yesterday. No one's mentioned anything about the meeting code changes, and when you read it, like, it's empowering councils, it's empowering mayors, it's improving councillor conflicts of interest, reducing unnecessary red tape and regulation, providing certainty to councillors about matters relating to remuneration, leaves of absences, vacation of office and eligibility, which is the one, but that leaves of absence isn't in regards to meeting code from what I've been reading, and it's got a few other things in there. So for me, if we're waiting on this, I don't think it's the same thing. That's my first concern.
So answer to that, I guess, is in terms of the changes to the legislation, so things like conflicts of interest will impact on the model meeting procedures that the state government produces and council's meeting code. So you might not necessarily see the meeting code referenced in the changed legislation, but the legislation certainly deals with changes to areas that need to be reflected in our meeting code. I hope that makes sense.
Yep, that makes a bit more sense then. What I was going to say is, it's disappointing to sit here and hear you say, if we'd known in advance that we're not going to be here, we can actually put it to a vote. I knew October that I wasn't going to be here, and I knew October, November that I wasn't going to be here for the December round. I actually would have put in and put it to a vote in November for me to actually Teams into one of those meetings in December because it had so much to do with Division 11, and I asked them to push the reports into this month, and they literally wouldn't. So had I have known that, and I've read the meeting code and that sort of thing, but I've never seen it in there that we can put it to a vote early. So that was disappointing to hear.
Sorry, through the chair, Councillor Wilcox, the requirement to, if you know earlier in advance, yet that's always been in the meeting code. However, that vote that would be taken earlier would still be subject to the list of exceptional circumstances in the meeting code. So it potentially wouldn't have helped your particular scenario. What would help is by making the changes that we're discussing today, but I hear what you're saying in relation to potentially needing a little bit more prescription about expanding those exceptional circumstances listed in the code.
Then yeah, I think we need to be a bit more prescriptive with it, because for me, exceptional circumstances is being on the other side of the world and knowing in advance that you're going to be on the other side of the world. So that's my logic to it. So thanks.
Councillor Bannon.
Thank you, through the chair. I just think we're overthinking it. Just to put weight, I'm sort of surprised the conversation's gone so far. Like, I don't think the meeting code changed from their first term, like my first term, to now, and we never had a problem. If you couldn't be there, you just notified the chair to get no worries. I don't think we're a good council. We all get along. We have a little blues like everyone does, but we've never limited each other in here. We all understand that every single person here is paid to represent their community, all right? It's out there and in here. There's not a single person in here that I could say would ever say to someone, you can't come because you got the flu. I think we make this as smooth and easy as possible. And if the chair can't be there, the deputy steps up and they teams in. It's just, the less red tape we can make it, the easiest transition it is. And we are paid to be in here. And if you can't be here for you're on personal leave or you're sick and you can teams in, that's called technology, right? During COVID, everyone teams into everything. So I just think we're overthinking it way too much. If my suggestion would be, I don't mind this other than the chairing part, but Mr. Strachan, make this as simple as possible that we can just teams in. No one abused it in the first, and I don't know before me, the Mayor and Councillor Brady, I don't know what happened before me, but no one abused it. In the first term, does anyone remember anybody abusing it and just sitting at home ripping into Maccas? No one did it. We all take our job seriously. We all know we have to represent the community. So I think we're overthinking it too much. Just let's get less red tape. You do whatever you do and what you're good at, and just make this as seamless as possible so someone can teams in if they have to. That's my blurb for today.
Yeah, I hear you through the chair, hear you loud and clear, Councillor Bannon. That's what the fulsome review of the meeting code does. If Council was so minded, we could also adjust that section of the meeting code in relation to for chairs needing to be, if they're in the meeting or teamsing in to chair the meeting, we can make a subsequent change to the code.
So can you put an amendment to that and we just vote for that?
Go ahead, Mayor.
I'm happy for it to be deferred. If, based on what Cherie said, wouldn't the simplest solution just to be remove the exceptional circumstances clause entirely? Wouldn't that be the most elegant and simple way, to Councillor Bannon's point, to just eliminate it? Because then the regulation controls us, which is what usually happens. All of those policies we've been doing, Emily's in the room, have been specifically removing duplication of extra rules that we Loganise when it's duplicating or replacing laws that already exist for us. So couldn't you just remove exceptional circumstances? Then it either gets approved or it gets voted on by the committee if you really need to go to a full extent. But I think if we all want as many councillors participating as possible, I think it's a good outcome for their residents and for the community more broadly.
All right, I've got Councillor Bradley, Murphy and Lane. Councillor Bradley.
Thank you. Through the chair, let it be on the record, I agree with Councillor Bannon. Here. And I'm very grateful that the City Solicitor simplified it and what she said. Really, realistically, we're elected by the community. We're adults. We shouldn't have to go to our doctor and get a medical certificate to justify that we were sick. If I'm sick, my doctor I can't get into for 4 weeks. So, you know, I'm not going to Teams in when I'm sick and I'm febrile on my couch. No way. So let's just get on. We've been talking about this for half an hour.
Councillor Murphy.
Thank you, through the chair. Just to dot the i's and cross the t's, I listened to everybody that is here. Why can't we change agenda item number 3 and do attendance, leaves of absence and remote connections? Then that way, if a councillor is going to be remote, you want the ability to approve it. This is by all the committee. We can address it on the agenda and we can go, just like a leave of absence, we can say this councillor is working remotely. Is that a possibility? And regardless of the reasonability, I'm just talking about whether you can add it to the agenda.
Thanks. Through the chair, I think Councillor Harriman did ask that question. I think that would probably create more complexity in Minister Riviere. So I guess what I'm hearing from the floor today is that the appetite is really simply to remove those provisions of the meeting code and rely on what's in the regulation. And we can do that, but it probably would require that this report is deferred to ordinary council.
One more, Councillor Lane.
Thank you. Codswallop Poppycock. This is absolute rubbish. We are expected to turn up 36 times a year plus special budget committee. If you can't do it, take a leave of absence. What happens if 7 people, God forbid, decide that they've got reasonable grounds to take leave? As the chair, you've got to manage that. It's not going to be the easiest thing in the world to do. What happens if we have 8 people out on reasonable grounds? How many times a year can you actually use reasonable grounds as a... We're paid a handsome wage. Just show up. If you can't take a leave of absence, if you have something that important on and the officers won't move it, go to the CEO. If it can't be moved, you miss out. Make sure your colleagues know what it's about and move on. Just ridiculous.
All right, we can vote on a deferral. And that motion is on screen, moved by Councillor Bannon and seconded by Councillor Bradley. All those in favour? That has been carried. Councillor Lane, how do you vote?
Against.
Thank you. We move on from the poppycock. Thank you, Chris. Moving on to 6.2. Audit and Risk Committee, December 2025. Thank you, Jason, to speak to this one. Sorry, hang on. I note that 6.2 has a confidential attachment. A proposed resolution to move this matter is displayed on the screen. Do any councillors wish to move into closed session for this item? There being none, we shall continue.
Thank you, Chair. This is a report to provide an update on matters discussed at the Audit and Risk Committee meeting on the 1st of December 2025. The confidential attachment of the Chairperson's report provides additional details regarding some of the agenda items discussed. Happy to take questions.
Councillor Stem.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Look, these meetings I would love to attend, and I think I will from here on, frankly, because when the report comes through to us, it gives us very little information. I don't know why the confidential report's confidential, because in my opinion, it tells me nothing more than what's in the main report. And all the main report tells me is that this person presented a report, and that's it. We don't get a copy of the report that they presented. Look, at this point, I just feel like there's a lot of information in this. I feel like it's a really important committee and a really important report. And as councillors, apart from the representatives that go, we don't get a lot of information when you know, the minutes tell us very little. So can I just ask, either moving forward, can we get more information on this report as to what was actually presented, or do we just need to attend, is what I'm trying to ask.
Thank you for your question, Councillor. 2 things. One is the agenda is actually circulated to the councillors prior to the meeting, and you're more than welcome to attend the meeting.
So ideally we need to attend. If we want any information, we really need to attend, is that correct? Because we're really not getting much out of the report, that's all.
That would be the appropriate.
Okay, all right,
yes.
cool. I'll do that from now on. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more questions? All right, we shall move to the motion, which is on the screen. Anyone ready to move that? Thank you, Councillor Bradley. Seconded by Mayor Raven. All those in favour? Has been carried. Councillor Heremai, how do you vote?
Against.
And Councillor Stem.
Against.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Jason. Moving to 6.3, Auditor General's report, final audit for 2025. Ms. Margaret Burnett will speak to this.
Good morning. Through the Chair, I present the Auditor General's report for the 24-25 financial year. Council has received an unmodified audit opinion confirming our financial statements are accurate and comply with the accounting standards. QAO has acknowledged continued improvement in our financial governance, particularly in strengthening internal controls. A number of IT general control findings remain. However, management continues to implement improvements and work programs are in place to address outstanding audit items. Happy to take questions.
Mayor Raven.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, my questions are for Rick about the IT deficiencies. Rick, we've been given a few deficiencies, but they seem quite small. How much risk do they represent to Council's cybersecurity?
Thank you for the question, through the Chair. So I think the challenges that we have is that the cyber risk keeps growing as a result of the threats that are in the marketplace. And so the standards that the QAO measure us to continue to grow. So we're continuing to drive to get closer to risk appetite on those things, and then the actions in place that we're taking will achieve that.
And so have you already been working on these risks before they gave you the deficiencies?
Yeah, that's right. So we've run a set of programs over the last 3 years that we're up to, and as the report says, there's been significant improvement in that time, and we've implemented a number of changes that have brought that in, including strengthening passwords that the members of this committee have all commented on, but all of those things are part of that program to do that.
So have you been working with the QAO to achieve the standards that they want? Why are they giving you a deficiency?
That's right, because the standards move year on year. QAO don't publish or issue what those standards are in advance. They come and turn up and tell you that since they came last time, the standards moved and this is what it is. So with the program that we're running at the moment is to get ahead of that, is to say these are the standards for council. If we operate to these standards, we will be within the risk appetite set by council, and so that will put us in better stead to not have this happen in the future.
And so they're essentially moving the goalposts without telling you how far they're moving them, and then they're slapping you on the wrist going, you haven't met the goalposts that we didn't tell you about until it was too late for you to meet the requirements.
So we continue to work closely with the QAO to
that was a very diplomatic yes, thank you.
That.
So my problem is, and just generally with the QAO, is that we work really hard to make sure that we get a great report, and we work hand in glove with them. We pay them a lot of money to do this audit, and we have to pay them that money, and they can set their own price. And then, even though you're working hand in glove, you're being collaborative, and both your department and the finance department are working very closely with them to get the best possible outcome, they still turn around and issue a report with deficiencies, which is so frustrating. I would get it if you weren't being helpful and you were saying, no, we don't need to fix that because council's met our risk appetite, we're not going any further. I would totally understand where they're coming from. But when they're saying that you're working with them, you've got a deadline of March, which you're already going to meet before then, it just frustrates me so much that we're paying someone to do an audit that doesn't tell us what their expectations are before that audit, but is happy to penalise us for not meeting those expectations. It just seems like they're not really working in good faith. And we spoke to the Auditor General about this when they came in to see the CEO and I expect better. I expect, because they said that they would work collaboratively and that they would work towards helping us achieve the goals that they want in the interest of the public, because it's all about making sure our cybersecurity and financial controls are good. The best way to do that is for them to tell us what they expect so we can achieve those goals. But anyway, thank you, Rick. I appreciate it.
Councillor Wilcox.
Thank you. I agree with the Mayor. I think if they keep moving the goalposts, it's a little bit like, if you keep moving the goalposts to show that there's deficiencies, it's to keep them in a job, it's to keep them in work, keep them coming back, because what we don't know is the deficiencies that we have on these pages the year before, would they not have been a deficiency? Would they not have been picked up? That'd be the interesting thing that I'd like to know, because, yeah, I think it's wrong that they don't tell us, and I think Mayor Raven needs to keep having that conversation to go, they need to publish it so that we actually know if we're in the right ballpark and that sort of thing. But in saying that, what I would like to know is, are our systems more secure now than say 12 months ago?
Thank you for the question, through the Chair. Yes, our systems are more secure than they were 12 months ago. As I mentioned, the passwords are stronger. We've got some work to significantly reduce the generic and service accounts that have got like a higher privileged access, and we've got an increased number of controls that measure and report on user access so that we can monitor and manage that better.
Thank you. I know that we're all getting driven nuts with the same things, especially with our passwords, and they hit on a Monday, but last week for some reason I had it Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday with Authenticator popping up on my computer and then my phone, and I literally thought it was just us until I went to London, and I'm sitting there with my sister and she's like, oh, going off brain, and then she was doing it and I'm like, oh, I literally thought it was a council thing. But anyway, it's not. I can tell you it's on the other side of the world as well. The only other question I do have is, how do staff that have left council still have access to our systems? Because this on page 2 and 3 is all about staff leaving and stuff like that. So it was a concern when I read it. I was like, how do staff still have access? Or staff that...
Yeah, thank you. It is hard to summarise what's complex and quite technical in a report. But to be clear, all staff that have left council have their access removed when they leave. The finding that is referred to in there is a system within council. So in order to get access to that system, you need to have access to council first. Potentially there is a backdoor, which is why it's a finding and why we need to deal with it. There is an automation that when you lose access, when you leave council, it should do that as well, and it stopped working. So it is it's correct to have a finding. We should resolve it, and we have. But the staff who have left lose access on the day they finish, which is appropriate.
Councillor Stamp.
Just a quick one. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just inquiring about, I think it was 24 ISO 1 and 24 ISO 2 that still aren't resolved. When are they likely to be resolved, please?
Yeah, thank you for the question. So we're working to the end of March.
Okay.
As the reason we have that date is because that's when they're coming back. And so we want to make sure that those things are in place and we have an opportunity to make sure that next year's audit has these things wrapped up.
Fantastic. Just wanted to ask. Thank you.
Excellent. There being no more questions, we shall move to the motion. Can we have someone to move the noting of this report? Thank you, Councillor Bannon. Someone to second that? Mayor Raven. All those in favour? That has been carried. Thank you, councillors. And thank you, Rick. Marg, take us into Local Infrastructure Program 6.4. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. This report recommends the endorsement of updates to the Local Infrastructure Program for January 2026. There has been an update attachment 1 distributed, which contains 9 new projects to the total value of $441,000 and 4 amendments to existing projects where scope or cost has changed, all of which fall within the policy. Happy to take questions.
Any questions? Yes, Councillor Lane.
Thanks very much. Mark, thanks for the fast processing of some of these local infrastructure program forms. I note that Division 2 has projects on this current round for Oates Park for fencing and other smaller projects. I just want to say the team managed to get these up pretty quickly when it comes to committees and us getting the information in late. So I just want to say thanks to your team for doing that. That's really appreciated.
There being no more questions, we'll table the report, table of lip things. Table the attachment. Thank you very much for language. Someone to move that? Thank you, Councillor Bannon, seconded by Mayor Raven. All those in favour of tabling the document? Thank you, that's been carried. And now the motion on the screen to approve these projects, moved by Councillor Bannon. Do I have a seconder to approve these LIP projects? Councillor Murphy, thank you. All those in favour? That has been carried. Thank you very much, councillors. Thank you, Marg. 6.5 is the monthly financial performance report for November. Thank you, Marg.
Thank you, Chair. I present the financial performance report for the period ending 30th of November 2025, noting that these results are reported against the original budget due to the budget amendment not having been adopted at the time the report was written. Council recorded an operating surplus of 40.18 million, which is 16.93 million above budget. Operating revenue is ahead of forecast due to strong development assessment activity, increased water consumption, higher commercial waste volumes. Operating expenditure is slightly above budget, mainly from private works, processing of biosolids and bulk water purchases. Capital expenditure is higher than budget by 17.1 million due to project timing and land acquisitions. Key risks being actively monitored are the potential uplift in depreciation linked to asset revaluations, which is currently in process, resourcing pressures across the construction sector, and ongoing improvement required in asset capitalisation processes. Cash and investment performance remains strong with interest revenue exceeding expectations. Happy to take questions.
Councillor Bradley.
Thank you. Through the chair, I imagine that you have collated information from different departments to put in express views on 226, page 226, specifically around the planning scheme. It's the first time I've seen that we might be, in writing, that we might be going out to public consultation again. So I imagine that's come from the department. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you.
Councillor Lane.
Thanks very much. Whenever we talk about these, the one that always interests me is the biosolids. And I'm just wondering whether Gerard can give us some indicator on whether there's been any feedback on the approval for the distribution and sale of those. I know that that's expected to be a significant income earner, turning nuggets into gold. And I'm just wondering when it's going to start.
Next, Jared.
Thank you, Councillor, for the question. In terms of the financial performance from this year, we are undertaking an upgrade of the biosolids facility at the moment, and so we are having to transport some additional biosolids rather than them being converted into biochar. In terms of the sale of biochar, we're currently considering commercial options on that and understanding whether we want to provide a broader market offering to anyone to come and provide to come into us, or for an exclusive arrangement, and so we're considering what our options are for that. In terms of timing, we anticipate that the biochar facility will be back online in April for proof of performance. We anticipate it should be performing into the next financial year, and at that point we'll be able to make decisions on what we do with the biochar.
Thanks. Do we have a reserve stock built up of biochar that equates to, I suppose, an asset?
The biochar which was produced prior to the end of waste code being finalised wasn't technically classed as biochar because the end of waste code was required for us to classify it, and so we had to remove that from site as biosolids. It has now been removed from Loganholme. I couldn't tell you the exact stockpile on site at the moment, but we did reduce it to virtually nil because that was biosolids, whereas the new classification of biochar came in when the end of waste code was published.
Awesome, thanks.
There being no more questions, we'll move to the motion to note these reports. Thank you, Councillor Bannon, seconded by Councillor St Ledger. All those in favour? That has been carried. Thank you, councillors. And thank you, Mark. 6.6 is community engagement strategy. Yes, Councillor Hall. Oh, sorry, yes, sorry. I'll take that, and Marg, if you hang around, just in case there's GB. Thank you.
Just for general business on this, sorry. I've just noticed on page 221 of 461 of the agenda the project number LIP 00961 for the Riverdale Park car park extension, it actually says master plan for car park with an additional allocation of 500,000. So we need to correct this because that allocation isn't for a master plan. That allocation is for the actual car park.
Don't have a $500,000 master plan.
Because I don't think my community really wants to spend $500,000 on a master plan. Yeah, so we just need to correct that before ordinary council. Sorry, page 2221.
We could make a change between now and ordinary council to rectify that in the table. Yeah.
Thank you, and Councillor Jeremiah picked that one up, so good eyes, Councillor Jeremiah.
Thank you for that. Does anyone have GB for Marg Barnett? No, Marg, did you have any for us? No, thank you. Sorry to miss you on that one. 6.6, thank you. Michelle.
I've not done it in this room before. This report seeks adoption of our community engagement plan for the next 4 years and the supporting toolkit. So we need to adopt a community engagement plan because it's a requirement of the Local Government Act, but also as a council we are fully committed, as I'm sure you're all well aware, to having meaningful engagement opportunities for our community. So just a quick refresh of how we got to this point. Our last engagement plan reached the end of its life the middle of last year. So we took a review of our existing documentation, had an independent report done to benchmark our practices and that document against best practice and what comparable local governments were doing. Out of that came a series of recommendations. We used those recommendations to draft the 2 documents that are now before you, or an earlier version of those drafts. We engaged internally to get feedback on what we had drafted, and then we took that out to the community last year in September and October. So when we went out to the community, we did communicate quite widely that we were seeking engagement through the Have Your Say platform. We did that through all of our usual channels, and we also used a couple of the mayor's pop-ups during that time as well, so there was some in-person engagement. Out of that, we had 326 visitors to the Have Your Say page for this particular survey. Of that, only 48 people contributed ideas or filled in the survey, but they were really thoughtful and considerate, and there was some really good feedback and suggestions that came out of it that has actually changed some of the wording and actions within the document itself. So I can just give you a very quick run through of how that input influenced the document. So the key things that people talked about, their feedback themes were they were frustrated at missed opportunities for engagement because they just weren't aware of them. They felt there was a bit of a lack of transparency in some cases. They wanted the engagement to be more accessible and to have varied communication to let people know that it was happening. And they also requested early involvement. There was also a lot of positive feedback on the documents themselves, that they were easy to read. They just wanted to make sure that, you know, the practices were, as I said, accessible. So in response to that, so in terms of improving notification and accessibility, this is a bigger issue for us as a corporate communications function, is how we reach those hard to reach parts of our community. So as a branch, as corporate communications, we're going to, and we're doing this on a regular basis anyway, but look even deeper and further as to how we can connect with members of our community. Increasing transparency and accountability. This is one of the big changes. We've developed a new template so that when we discuss engagement opportunities with parts of the organisation, we run through a series of key questions and things that we want them to talk about. Some we already do, some we haven't done before. So first and foremost, we really need to understand why we're doing the engagement. For a long time, we've talked in this organisation about not doing tick and flick engagement. So we want to make sure that we're very, very clear about what we're engaging. Is it for community buy-in? Is it just awareness and understanding? Is it building trust? We need to let the public know how their input is going to shape the decision. So this is your classic what's negotiable, what's not negotiable, and being really clear about that up front. How will feedback be analysed and used? So are we going to the community and the community's input will be the sole input that we take to make the decision, or is it one of many sources of feedback and input? How will council use the decision to make, how will council use the information to make a decision? So is this a decision that will be made at officer level, or is this a decision that will come to full council for a decision? And this is a bit of a cracker. What will happen if there's strong opposition? We've not really talked about that in the past in our planning, and it's something that we need to think about as an organisation. But we also need to be upfront with the community whether there is capacity for that to influence. So, for example, if we go out with a local law, we are limited with the amount of influence feedback can have about the existence of the local law. So we just need to understand what we can and can't use engagement feedback for. And how will we report the outcome? So again, we usually close the loop on have your say. One of the interesting bits of feedback that came through was that we talk in statistics when we talk about outcomes for engagement, about level of engagement and involvement, but we don't necessarily report on how influential the feedback was. It's a really hard thing to measure, but we think we can try to at least anecdotally, talk about the volume of feedback and then the percentage of that actually helped contribute to a decision. So in summary, what we're hoping is that these two documents will make our transparencies and outcomes, make our outcomes and processes more transparent, that we have a stronger emphasis on early engagement where possible, and that we look to have deeper engagement. Any questions?
Thank you, Paula. Councillor Bradley.
Thank you, through the chair. I really appreciate this and your explanation about what has changed. I'm very passionate about public consultation and always have been, and will even consult about the simplest things, but I don't use social media for that. My question is, does it actually stop us as a councillor to continue that process that we've always done, which works well, of consulting our community that we represent?
Yeah, through the chair, absolutely not. We recognise the importance of mayor and councillors and what your role in this space is in the document and throughout the toolkit as well about, with your support, we fully appreciate when you're able to share engagement opportunities through your own platforms and networks, and we 100% want to continue that because you're one of our best connection points.
Okay. And I also just had a look to see if Plateau Park was still on the have your say, and it's not, so I'm assuming that the plans went out over the Christmas, New Year, which...
which park was that, Councillor?
Plateau Park. So it was a bit of a dilemma, but I won't go into that.
I'll take that on notice and follow that up.
But I'll follow up with the park stuff. But thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Lane.
Thanks very much. Quick question. We were using the old system to put the information out into the community, or the new projected sort of system of communicating with residents, because 48 submissions is not enough for me to make a reasonable decision today. I don't think that it went out or attracted enough responses. A post about rubbish on a street gets more. So I'm just curious as to why we think the take-up was so low, given that we have a media and communications strategy and team out there. Why did we get so few, quite frankly? And I note that you went to a lot of places, definitely. Why?
Through the chair, purely a subjective personal opinion. I think because it was such a broad, not a policy piece, but a more strategic piece, community has to have a real invested interest to reply. So the fact that we had 326 people went to that website, in my mind, they read it and they're either not engaged in the content, as in it doesn't really matter to them, they're ambivalent about it. We only ever hear generally when people are unhappy. The biggest respondents, from what I can tell, came back through people who already subscribed to the Have Your Say e-newsletter, so they're invested in that and invested in community engagement generally. as you saw, you know, we had a newspaper ad, we had briefs in the paper, obviously Council's Facebook page, the Have Your Say newsletter, Community Connections. We went out through community development to try and, you know, reach through different channels. Meet the Mayor, there were 2 pop-ups where we took the survey along to that. And obviously, excuse me, also Council's website. So when you think about what else has been happening in the community discussion around the same time, I think people can be very attached to the topics that matter most to them. And because this is very broad and not specific, I just don't know that it would, I don't know that I agree, I'd love a much higher number. But I think the number actually tells us something as well, because we did go out reasonably broadly, which is that this particular plan and the supporting toolkit are not things that the community is deeply concerned about. Now, that might be naive on my part, but that's kind of how I read that.
Naive is a good word. So we've got, on a Sunday morning, I pop up to the Global Food Village markets. On average, I have 30 to 50 conversations on a Sunday morning over a 2-hour period. That's about local matters that concern people. It's about that they didn't know about things. We've got marvellous mature women that meet every Tuesday morning at 9 o'clock at the Logan Central Library. Averages about 40 to 50 people each time. Amputees and Family Support Group have multiple programs free to the community where they average 40 to 50 people at each program, and that's multiple days a week. Lakota, literally just outside this building, has around 1,500 people a week go to that building. There are multiple spaces throughout just Division 2 alone where a visit would have made that 48 number so much higher. So when it comes to community engagement and strategy, I'm just concerned that we don't have enough breadth to make a decision on this, and I'd like to see it go back out and for visits to be made to places in Beenleigh, places in Parkridge and places in Jimboomba that have existing programs, to see whether or not you can go and make that discussion with the groups to see whether or not they do want to engage in it, and just noting that many of those people are from the CALD community or older and do not go onto the internet. So that's my preference when it comes to this engagement strategy, but I'll let my colleagues talk about that.
Through you again, Mr Chair. Love all of those suggestions, and one of the actions that we have based on that feedback, on the community feedback, was we want to do some social mapping to understand where all those touch points are, because right now we don't know all of those. And if we know those, then we can build those into our planning when we have engagement opportunities. So I would love to have access to that information, and if we can adopt this, then that's one of the actions that we can, roll out.
And I completely appreciate what you're saying, but all of those venues are public venues owned by council, run by council, with the Community Services Division understanding that they're operating on those days and time.
Councillor Stepp.
Thank you, Mr Chair. Okay, so look, I love toolkits. I think they're great. It gives people guidance on where to go. It does still concern me you don't seem to get a lot of engagement, I guess. But I'm hoping that maybe this new toolkit might help. And I'd love to see some KPIs as to how you can measure whether it's improving. A couple of the things I did notice that were kind of missing from the toolkit was engagement with teenagers. I know that I think I've mentioned it before. I mean, I do a lot of consultation in high schools when I'm trying to find out something, because they're our future and they're really quite engaged, and the schools are normally pretty keen to get you in there and have a chat. They learn about council, they learn about how we operate, and it gets some really good feedback. So if we can somehow put that in there if there's a topic that's relevant and something for the future particularly, can we get in and talk to our young people? Because most of them, you might think they're not interested, but you'd be surprised they are. The other one is, again, similar to Councillor Lane, is the shopping centres or these markets. Honestly, in terms of engagement, I mean, I go to a shopping centre, I get probably, I couldn't even shopping, I get 100 people talk to me over a morning, and that's insane. And I mean, I don't get that anywhere else. So again, if it's something really important, I think, just get in all you do is say good morning, they walk past, if they're interested, come back, like, it's engagement. They know what you're talking about, they know the things you're interested in, and you want to get feedback on. They may not provide feedback, but at least they're becoming aware of the things we're trying to get feedback on. So that was just the 2 other points I wanted to make. So,
Great. Through the chair, we do have a listing in the toolkit of all of our different segments, and teenagers are there, and there's a bunch of suggestions for when we're planning as to how we might connect with them. So we do that on a project by project basis. We're also a team of 2 full-time people and me. So that's why we're not across absolutely everything, because, you know, we work with project teams to work out the best options for each project. Very, very valid. I would love to have the resources to be out in shopping centres all the time and out in schools, so we have to be really targeted with how we do that. But if you have projects, and this goes for all of you, if you have projects where you feel like there's specific audiences that we're not aware of, please tell us, because we'll do all we can to reach them.
The other thing, just quickly too, I mean, again, because we're having that engagement, if there's topics that you really want to get feedback on, can you give us a flyer or something? I mean, honestly, people will engage. I mean, I just think if there's something really important you want to get, we have the Logan plan, we put the flyers out
Except
there,
for
and you know what I mean. I'm just saying,
Yeah,
it's
no, we would
things
love
that are
that.
really important. We're happy to. I know I am anyway. Happy to have it on my table when I'm doing a mobile office, and you know, saying to people that we're trying to get feedback on this. I'll take it away, and I think it's just reminding, letting people know that these. I think it's them. Often it's them finding out about that we need the feedback is part of the problem too. I think if it's something of interest to them, then they will contribute. So.
Through the chair, can I just ask the best way to do that? Is the Monday email that you get from the Office of the CEO, is that the place to give you that information? I thought it was Monday now. But yes, if that works, absolutely. Thank you.
Councillor Harriman. All right. Thank you, Paula. Oh, yes, Mayor Raven.
Thank you, Mr Chair, through you. Love the changes, especially closing the loop on the feedback. Be interesting to find a way, and I know it's challenging when, because you spoke about transparency of how feedback influences decisions or how it gets used in decisions. It'd be really interesting when we have something like budget and we do consultation on budget, but the decision-making process of the Special Budget Committee is confidential, but the outcome is public. Right, so while you couldn't tell them before the budget, after the budget, you could totally say, hey, all this engagement got done in the 6 months leading up to the budget, and this outcome was based on feedback. And because we know in the room how it influenced, because the debate happens, but that debate is confidential, but the outcome doesn't have to be, and so you could use that information. The other, and I heard Councillor Lane say it, and I think it's a great idea when using councillors by providing them information that you're consulting on. I know we don't want councillors to be operational, but there's some operations that we can empower and amplify for you, and this is a great example because community engagement is totally BAU for councillors, and so giving them the stuff that you want feedback on, you might not get it through Have Your Say and a nice neat package, but you'll still totally get the feedback even if it's a councillor telling you what people's reactions were either at a market or a shopping centre. And the last one, which is probably something you could partner with Records on, is social media sweep. So all of our social media gets documented and saved. And with the AI we've got now, I'm sure that those documents can be swept for keywords, and you could do it in dates. So if you've got something really spicy, we'll use like the public art, for instance. You could totally search for public art on councillors' Facebook, like records, to find out how many, even just how many times it got mentioned by comments, not by the councillor, by comments, just to see where the interest is. Because I agree with you, when you go and try to talk to a group and say, hey, I want to talk to you about community engagement, that's not really, that's not getting them out of bed in the morning. But when you talk to them about something that they care about, like do you want a giant raven to be on the M1, I guarantee you they will give you feedback. They will disagree with that idea and then they'll tell you what they actually think. But all sorts of different things too can get them excited. But yeah, doing community engagement on community engagement is really through the looking glass stuff, which I don't think most people, to your point, want to provide feedback on, but they totally want to give you feedback on the stuff that matters to them day to day. Whether that's, do we keep curbside cleanup? Do we want to pay for green waste? All those sorts of things that come up in a circular fashion every 4 years. You could do a running piece on that almost every 12 months and you'd get feedback and you'd see how much it shifted over time. So, but I think I thoroughly support the changes. I think the toolbox is great. And yeah, just tapping councillors as a resource, because there are only two of you. Then I think that'll be really valuable and means that councillors feel like they're part of your community engagement process.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, councillors. We'll move to the motion that this toolkit be adopted. Could we have someone to move that? Mayor Raven, someone to second. Councillor Stemp. All those in favour? Any against? No?
Against.
Thank you. Has been carried. Thank you, councillors. Does anyone have any GB for Paula? No, Paula, any for us? No, thank you. Thank you. Sorry, Paula, if you could just drop back.
No, that's okay. She's right there. So just on the, and I'm not sure, I think this is Paula's area, was the Get Ready program for Christmas on all the billboards. Hugely, like, you can see everything as it was getting done. People were starting to engage in the Get Storm Ready process. So congratulations on that, because every time you drove past a council-owned billboard, you could see it front and centre. So well done for the Get Storm Ready stuff.
Thank you. Does anyone have any GB for Kim Bryant, Executive General Manager of People and Engagement? Kim, do you have any for us?
Yes, I do. Would you like me to come to the front or do it from here?
Yes, come down here and get your face in the camera.
Must be nerves. I'm puffing after a few steps. Happy New Year, councillors, and to the community. Just as I started at the end of last year, I just wanted to give a call out to some of our staff achievements. As we're early in the new year, it's a shorter list, but all the more worth sharing. In December, we celebrated our Trainee and Apprentice Awards with the Trainee of the Year and a Community and an Excellence Award and Supervisor and Branch of the Year. So that was well publicised within the business, and it's one of our special events of the year to see the celebration of some people bringing all their family members and just really celebrating more than someone that's been awarded a PhD, so it's just great to see. Our City Fleet branch achieved 360 days without a lost time injury. With the amount of focus that we're putting on safety, that was really significant, and it came through their hard work and commitment because they were having a number of incidents. So it just shows when you do put that level of commitment with time and effort, you can turn your safety performance around. This is a really, I'll come back to you if I may. Okay. We have a very special mention for Aaron Spring and Mary Joy. They are both staff members from our Mount Warren Community Centre, and they were able to save someone's life early this last year by resuscitating them. And the Royal Life-Saving Society of Australia nominated these staff, and they'll be presented with an award by the Governor on the 3rd of February. So that was a great outcome for everyone. Rochelle Lepeau is one of our people and culture staff members, and she's a salsa dancer, but she dances to raise money for causes all the time. And her last event was for the Starlight Children's Foundations, and she combines her love of dance with really getting in and raising very significant amounts of money for the community. We're commencing our leadership development program for the 16th year, and we're kicking that off this week, and that's where we have around 20 up-and-coming leaders participate in almost a year-long program to develop their skills. And the last reference is to some of our water staff, Anna Carpenter and Tyrone Ware. Both work for the Integrated Services Hub, and they've been invited to profile what they do for Smart Water Networks, which is in a global context in terms of how they run their dashboards and how they're leveraging to run a smarter and make faster operations in the Logan water space. And they were the references for this month.
Excellent. Thank you for celebrating our people, and pass our congratulations on to all those. That'd be awesome. Did you have a punchline you want to throw in, mate?
I can just imagine it's 360 days, and you've got 5 to go for the year, and if someone gets hurt, you'd be like, mate, you're kidding. We almost made it.
Thank you, Kim. Alrighty, 6.7, Strategic Asset Management Plan. Emily Shafto is on her way up for this one. And we'll have a short presentation.
Good morning, councillors, through the chair. Today we're seeking endorsement of the annual update to Council's Strategic Asset Management Plan, meeting our legislative obligations while continuing to strengthen the way Logan's future is planned. This plan provides the most up-to-date and comprehensive view we've ever had of the city's infrastructure to date and the considerations needed to keep services safe, reliable and sustainable as the City of Logan rapidly grows. It helps council, the community and other levels of government have an informed conversation about the balance between service, price, risk and advocacy. So council has made asset management a key organisational priority over the last couple of years. We continue to improve the knowledge of our assets and their conditions so we can continue to provide great services for the City of Logan. The plan today represents a further really positive step change in our asset management and long-term planning maturity. It ensures that council can continue to plan and prioritise with increased levels of confidence, making well-informed choices for our city. In introducing today's plan, I would add that Council's Audit and Risk Committee has acknowledged the strength of this work, noting that Council's strategic approach to asset management provides a strong platform for supporting Logan's growth and places us in a favourable position compared to many of our local government peers. So I'll hand over to our Strategic Data and Asset Management Manager to briefly walk councillors through key aspects of the plan. Thank you.
Okay. So the Strategic Asset Management Plan is a key document that forms part of the system of financial management for council, alongside the corporate plan, annual budget, long-term financial forecast and the annual operational plan. It's a long-term document or long-term plan that's reviewed annually, providing estimates for renewing, upgrading and extending the city's assets aligned with the long-term financial forecast. It also provides the strategies for the sustainable management of our assets now and into the future. As a result of strong internal governance behind the scenes, this year's update to the SAMP, or Strategic Asset Management Plan, has been informed by detailed asset management plans for major asset classes. It's a good example of the integrated approach to planning that's been established to support the strong management of the city's assets. This particular chart is a summary of the composition of the infrastructure assets portfolio. We can see that approximately half of the portfolio is made up of transport and stormwater infrastructure by replacement value, with water and wastewater infrastructure also representing a significant portion. Each year, Council participates in the National State of Assets reporting led by the Australian Local Government Association. The condition of the city's assets are generally in good or fair condition. So there's robust controls in place to help ensure the quality of our asset condition data continues to improve over time. Similar to many councils, good planning's identified challenges when it comes to maintaining service levels over the longer term. This includes balancing the replacement of assets as they reach end of life, while also providing new assets to support one of Australia's fastest growing cities. Moving forward, there's a strong focus to enhance the confidence in our long-term estimates, with forecasts currently carrying a moderate level of confidence. So over the past 2 years, there's been heavy investment in enhancing asset management maturity across the organisation. Key activities include the development and review of asset management plans for major asset classes, establishing clear roles and responsibilities across the organisation, implementing strong asset management governance and controls, while also working towards improving asset management skills and capabilities of our workforce. As a result of this, we have a much better understanding of where the opportunities lie in the future and so we can plan better into the future. The Strategic Asset Management Plan itself contains 31 improvement tasks, which are designed to support the continued development of Council's asset management system, which is important for asset-intensive organisations like Council. So ongoing opportunities include having a good understanding of what assets the city has and their condition, monitoring services and service levels to ensure they're optimised, and balancing investment in the renewal of existing assets and the construction of new assets to support the growing city. Moving forward, there'll be continued focus on the sustainable management of the city's assets to ensure we're well positioned to support the ongoing delivery of services to the city that the city's infrastructure provides. Thank you.
Mayor Raven.
Thank you, Mr Chair, through you. Thank you very much for the report. And I think it's always important to remember when we're talking about assets, we're mostly talking about infrastructure. And the community raises concerns about infrastructure and how we're managing them and what the plan is for the future with us on a weekly basis. And so it's great to see that we're industry leading when it comes to asset and infrastructure management. I just wanted to call out something really positive in the report that I read, which I would love to see more of across council. You said that you want to make, where is it? You said you want to make improvements to your asset management where the benefits exceed the costs. So often in government, it's improvement for the sake of improvement. It's continuous improvement with no consideration of what the cost of that improvement is. So when I read that, there was literally a yippee that came out of my office. The mayoress was confused about why I was excited while I was reading my agendas, because it's normally a pretty quiet activity. But I thought that it was just so good to see that you were considering the cost benefit rather than just improvement for the sake of it. So keep up the great work, and hopefully that attitude ripples out across the entire organisation through the good work of the EPMO.
Councillor Lane.
Thanks very much. And I would have raised this outside of committee if I had have seen it, but the asset condition report, can you pop that back up on the screen? Because I was really disappointed to see parks have such a poor rating when our parks have actually improved exponentially. How is this rated? Who rates it? And yeah, who came up with that outcome?
Through the chair, that particular metric or measure for parks, that's something that we're looking to improve the data and information that we have around the condition of park assets. It carries a moderate to low level of confidence, that particular rating for park assets.
I still don't understand who did this, how did they come up with it, and how is it assessed at this level? Because I think our parks are actually quite lovely, and we've spent a lot of time and attention improving them. So who came up with this outcome on this particular report? It's our parks team worked very, very hard to maintain them and to improve them. The local infrastructure program money going into them. I just don't understand how we came up with this outcome. Can you explain that for me?
Yeah, through the chair, the methodology used for the development of the condition profile for park infrastructure was based on the age of the asset. So moving forward, what we need to do is improve the quality of our asset condition data by undertaking more regular assessments and documenting the condition of the asset. So I guess it's a methodology that doesn't necessarily reflect or potentially may not reflect what's out in the field. So that's why there's continued focus on improving the asset data and information through undertaking those site visits to document the actual condition or observed condition of the assets.
Thanks very much. I will note that there are some councils that have infrastructure that's 100 years old, and it's absolutely beautiful. We have infrastructure that is somewhat 50 years or 60 years old, and it's still in a very serviceable condition and well loved by the community. So I don't think that the way in which this is being assessed, particularly going by age, because let's face it, there's not too many under 50 in this room, is an expectation of how good or bad it is. But it's poorly reflected in that report, and I find that a little bit not okay, if that's putting it bluntly. So yeah, thank you.
Councillor Stem.
Thank you, Mr Chair. Look, there's a lot of information in this report, and it's one of those things that, I mean, I guess we're not consulted with as councillors per se. I mean, we touch on bits of this along the way. What concerns me is, so this is an annual review, so we do it every year. Is that correct? So this is something that's done. Yeah, it is done every year. Obviously, the challenges that you've noted in there. I mean, the 1.2 billion over the next 8 years gap is quite scary when you think about it. And yes, we're putting things in place, but how do we know if it's enough? I mean, how do we know? I guess I'd love the opportunity for us to maybe, I don't know, get together with the councillors just to have a bit more of a brainstorm. I don't know. It just worries me that I don't doubt the organisation know what they're doing. It's not that. It's just that this is a really big deal, in my opinion. And, you know, I know we're not alone. I know the councils have the same challenges. We're growing. I know all those things. But I guess it'd be something I would like to not just make sure that we only see once a year. That kind of makes sense. I'd love the opportunity for us to maybe engage in this space and maybe have a discussion about what's planned. Some of these, I mean, there's so many tables, so many things. I was sitting there for hours and hours, but there's such an information overload. I'd love to delve into it a little bit deeper and just see whether we can somehow contribute. So I just wanted to make that comment.
Through the chair. With the strategic asset management plan itself, it will require a coordinated and collaborative approach to address those opportunities moving forward. So, yeah, certainly that'd be from councillors and the mayor, but also internal departments. So it is one of those things that we need to work together to address.
Just be noted at some point, you know, can we have, I don't know when or where, but how, but if we can just find a time to maybe just delve into it a bit deeper, I'd really appreciate that.
Thank you, Councillor. We can certainly come to present an informal briefing, do more of a deep dive there in that forum.
We'll find a way.
So we will absolutely find a way. Thank you for the feedback. Yep.
Thank you, councillors. We will have a motion to receive the PowerPoint. Oh, sorry, I didn't. Go ahead, Councillor Bradley.
Thank you. Yeah, my hand went up when about the parks as well, because obviously that is something that the community value immensely, and we usually pride ourselves as a city on our parks, but it's really the asset replacement. And before council amalgamation, which was way before any of the councillors' his time, parks used to be replaced every 10 years. That's been stretched out now. So I'm not surprised with the data, but I think we do need to do a deep dive, as Councillor Stamp has articulated, in working out how to deal with this, because it's not going to go away. And yes, the roads also, our sealed roads, that's not going to go away as well. So I think we need to look at it very strategically.
Thank you, Councillor Bradley. It's an absolute focus of the organisation, and it will remain such going forward.
Thank you, councillors. We will table PowerPoint. If I can have someone to move that. Thank you, Councillor Stamp, seconded by Councillor St Ledger. All those in favour? That has been carried. Thank you. And now, motion on the screen to adopt this report, or this plan. Someone to move that? Councillor Stamp, seconded by Mayor Raven. All those in favour? That's been carried. Councillor Lane, how do you vote?
I'll abstain. I don't agree with the methodology that the assessment's been done on, particularly on parks.
No worries, thank you. Moving on to our last one, 6.8, Policy Task Force Phase 4. Thank you, Emmeline.
Thank you, Chair. We're here today to seek endorsement of Phase 4 of Council's policy modernisation initiative. This work is about making policies clear, simple and future fit so they meet the needs of our growing city. By way of progress, the Policy Task Force completed modernisation of the entire policy suite by December, completing the process in 5 phases over a 6-month period. We really acknowledge the role of councillors in providing feedback and input along the way as we have developed these drafts, so thank you. In terms of phases 1 to 3 policies adopted by Council late last year, we're in the final stages of implementation with the aim to going live with these new policies in the coming weeks. Before we do, we will be consulting with councillors to ensure that the public-facing information that comes out of the existing policy suite is accurate and complete. So we will be in touch with councillors very shortly. So after today, we have one final phase remaining, phase 5, and we intend to bring that to council in March, which represents the completion of this piece of work. So today, phase 4 represents 11 policies into 5 new modernised ones. I'll walk through them very quickly. So the first policy is the acceptable request guidelines policy. The approach here is simply modernising the existing policy, including guiding principles. We've made some minor updates to include best practice recommendations, and we've made a couple of practical improvements, like including councillor advisors. So, you know, in practical terms, councillor advisors here under the old policy were not included, risking potential delays around, you know, requesting information from the organisation. The new policy clearly recognises and acknowledges the role of councillor advisors in making requests on behalf of the councillor. The second policy we have here is the employee travel policy. So this is rationalisation of 2 policies. Essentially, it's been drafted to support transparency around travel outcomes and practicality in terms of business trips. It's been benchmarked as well broadly against state government standards. So here, as an example, the previous policy required multiple levels of sign-off for employees to undertake even minor domestic trips. The new policy doesn't, streamlines that and does, whilst maintaining levels of approval, saves time and administrative expense. I might just pause on this one and acknowledge that we've picked up a minor administrative slip late in the piece with regard to the incidental allowances. The incidental allowance figures are somewhat higher than. I might pass to Robert to talk to this one.
Through the chair, just look, I guess apologies for the late change. In my review of this policy, or final review of this policy, I was kind of mindful of, I think, a comment that Councillor Stemp might have, or a question Councillor Stemp might have raised at the project control group in relation to this policy around the amount of incidental allowances. At the moment, the draft policy stipulates $100 per day for international travel and $75 a day for domestic travel. I did go and have a look at as a point of reference of the ATO tax determination in relation to incidental allowances for domestic and international travel. And that tax determination is quite complicated because it includes varying salary levels, and for international travel, it differs based on the country of travel, or the destination. But my suggestion is, my review of that tax determination is that we potentially should reduce the incidental allowances. My suggestion would be for international travel that it be adjusted back to $60 a day, and for interstate and intrastate and interstate travel it be reduced down to $35 a day, down from $75 a day, which in my read of the tax determination would be closer to what the ATO stipulates.
Question, Mayor Raven.
Thank you, Robert, and appreciate the alignment with the ATO. My understanding from the conversations in the PAG were part of that incidental allowance is actually lowering the red tape costs of processing a whole bunch of requests for reimbursement, because you give someone $100 a day, for example, instead of $60, they don't claim for reimbursements because they've got that funding there, whereas the cost of a reimbursement claim costs the organisation far more than $40 per claim, even though you might only be claiming $20, $30 on it. So you end up, yes, it looks like you're giving a smaller amount and you're aligning, you end up costing the ratepayer more in time and wasted resources in the organisation. So did you consider that when you were looking at how to balance that price point?
Yes, that's a good point, Mayor Raven, and that's why incidental allowances exist, is because it's those small amounts of money you've got to expend while travelling. That's weighed off against the bulk of the cost of travelling, like the actual cost of flights, accommodation, breakfast, lunch and dinner are generally covered. So what it really leaves are just those small kind of incidental costs that you may actually find yourself having to absorb whilst travelling. So I guess that was considered, Mayor Raven, and I guess that is considered by the ATO when they set their rates in relation to that tax determination. So I thought the better view was potentially, based on feedback from the PCG, was to align that daily rate closer to what the ATO have determined.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. The third policy we have is the entertainment and hospitality policy. This is a new policy that's been drafted in line with the local government regulation. It draws from the existing gift, benefits and hospitality policy. It includes principles which provide a transparent and accountable framework. By way of example, where council hosts an official delegation from a sister city, that will involve the provision of hospitality. In the old policy, there was a little bit of ambiguity around what was appropriate and how to document it. The new policy provides clearer principles and guidelines requiring documentation and record keeping to ensure responsible use of public funds. The fourth policy we have is the financial hardship policy. So this is a rationalisation of 4 policies into one. This introduces new key principles to support consistent decision making in relation to hardship, and introduces the additional benefit of fairness. So this for the public is easier than navigating 4 policies. They simply go to one single policy, and it's easy for them to understand. Example where a resident's facing really difficult, unexpected hardship situation, they simply can go to the one policy rather than have to navigate that, navigate 4. And the final policy we have is also rationalisation of 3 existing procurement policies into one. This is in line with sort of standard best practice across local government. It includes, based on feedback from the Policy Advisory Group meeting, it includes greater focus on local procurement. And again, being one single policy, we hope it's easier for members of the public to access and understand. If, as an example, a Logan social enterprise applying to supply catering for a council event, under the old set of policies, social and local benefit supplies were considered, but often later in the process as a secondary consideration. In the new policy, it has social and local consideration as a principle, so it ensures that these are prioritised from the outset of the procurement process. Just in wrapping up, similar to previous phases, if council endorses these policies today, we do some work behind the scenes to prepare them for implementation. We anticipate they go live fairly quickly because there's not a huge amount of procedure sitting behind them. We then, for all of our policies, have a 6-month review period scheduled in, so we can come back to council and take on any feedback and make any adjustments we need to the policy suite, and then evolve them from there. Councillors, we seek endorsement of the recommendation today. We do have an alternate recommendation in relation to the travel policy particulars ready to go as well. So, thank you, and happy to take any questions.
Any questions, councillors? Councillor Stemp.
Thank you, Mr Chair. Just with the procurement policy, when I came to the meeting, I mentioned about how I believe that still needs to be delved into further. I think it's something that we need to, I personally still think it's working as well as it should be. You talk about the 6-month review mechanism. Is that something we're going to get the opportunity to have a further look at between now and then? I mean, otherwise I won't be voting for it today because I just still think it still needs some work, in my opinion. I know it's great that we combined 3 together. I think that's fantastic. That's what we need to be doing. But in terms of itself, to me, it's just doesn't matter who you talk to. It still doesn't seem like it's really working as well as it could be. My opinion.
Happy to, through the chair. Yeah, happy to. So the 6-month is a review in terms of just reviewing all of the policies. We could commence that review earlier. There is changes that are going to be made to Council's contracting management plan, which does include a lot of the detail I think that you're chasing in relation to procurement arrangements. So what I'd suggest is, Councillor Stamp, we have a look at the changes to that particular document when it flows through Council. If that doesn't alleviate the concerns, then we go back and review the policy. And we can do that prior to 6 months.
If no other questions, we will table the PowerPoint. I have someone to move that. Councillor Murphy, and second, Councillor Hall. All those in favour of the PowerPoint? That's carried. Thank you, councillors. And now the recommendation, and this will be straight to the amended recommendation with the travel incidental allowance change. Just give you a minute on that. If anyone's ready to move it, I'll let me know. Thank you, Mayor Raven. And a seconder, Councillor Hall. All those in favour? Give me a count. 3, 5. Sorry, yep, go around the room, thank you.
Abstain.
Thanks. I'd like to abstain and I'll provide a reason. So during the process, I suggested adding in public reporting mechanisms for overall staff travel costs, allowances and hospitality spends, and those were rejected. I think that they're a very, in the interest of transparency, that's a no-brainer for me.
St Ledger?
For.
Raven?
For.
Hall?
For.
Jeremiah?
Against.
Stamp?
I'd like to abstain also on the basis that, well, I do agree with the majority of the policy information. There's that the procurement one, I think, is still one that I'd like to leave at this point. I don't think it's...
Councillor Wilcox?
I'll abstain with a reason as well, please. I still think a couple of them need a bit more work and a bit more tweaking to make them great.
Councillor Murphy?
For.
And I was for. That was tie. I'm casting for, and trusting the review process will take into consideration the other things that you guys have mentioned. Thank you. Thanks, Emily. All right, any GB for Emily? Any for us? No? Thank you very much. All right. Thank you, councillors. That concludes today's agenda. Does anyone have any GB for Robert? And do you have any for us? No? Being none, I declare the governance meeting of, what date are we on? 20th of January concluded at 11:20. Thank you, councillors.